We are now playoffs bound for MSC 2022 with the first 2 days of the group stages behind us with Falcon Esports, Todak, RSG Philippines, RSG Singapore, RRQ Hoshi, Omega Esports, Orange Esports, and EVOS SG going on over to the playoffs. It's going to be a different kind of video. We're just going to be sitting down talking about what went down in the first 2 days of MSC 2022. And we started off the day with Falcon versus Todak. Now, Falcon Esports, I think for most people, they were a team that were, I wouldn't say overlooked, but didn't have a lot of expectations for Falcon. But I like how MSC 2022 was just opened up with a surprise. Of course, with Todak being the champions of Malaysia, it's their home court. We're expecting them to start off MSC 2022 strong, but it was the other way around. They were surprised by Falcon in game 1 of their series. It was actually Todak in control for most of the game, but then suddenly Falcon were able to turn things around with a Lord fight. They swept the rug from underneath Todak's feet, and they were able to counter punish after a Lord fight, and eventually that's how they would win game number 1, because after that Todak couldn't find any more control or footing in the map, and Falcon were just, okay, we have the momentum, we're in position, let's just get this win. And then in game number 2, it was Todak in the lead for the good first 4 minutes. They were more aggressive this time around. They were really taking it to Falcon, and Tom's for 4 May's well-deserved MVP performance. He really helped add to the aggressive playstyle of Todak in that game number 2 because of how he rotated, and Todak were able to at least get 1 apiece, but then they'd be going up against Onic later, which we know at this point the result of that, what happened. It was surprising, but I like it because he really set the tone for MSC 22 with this first one. We got a surprise result in game number 1, and it just is a good summary, or a good way to encapsulate what was the group stages, which was just surprising. Into the next match, RSG PH versus SeeYouSoon. SeeYouSoon was one of the teams from Cambodia that a lot of people were thinking, might be able to surprise this group. RSG PH, though, man, it was just dominating, and I think that's the key word to describe their performance in Group B against SeeYouSoon and RSG SG, their sister team. It's just that they were dominating. If you didn't get to watch a lot of RSG PH in MPL Philippines Season 9, this was one of your first matches of RSG PH that you were watching them. This is a perfect representation of how they play. Very clean, very timer-oriented, objective timer-oriented, personal power spike timers-oriented. They really know how to play with their individual and team timers. They rotate really well. They cover each other really well. Aqua and Light, along with Demon Kite, are a dominating trio to go up against if you're not careful. Light and Aqua knows how to take very good care of their side laners, usually Eman, but of course sometimes if Naths isn't winning lane, he'll get a bit of help, but usually it's Eman, the gold laner of RSG PH, that they help out. He got MVP performances back-to-back, if I'm not mistaken, or at least he got a signature Beatrix performance in game number 1. Game number 2, if I'm not mistaken, he did also play that Beatrix. I'm gonna have to recheck that. But yeah, this is just textbook RSG PH. However, in game number 2, it was SeeYouSoon who were able to get a respectable lead as well, because they had a 4-2 tower lead 12 minutes in. SeeYouSoon kept hunting for the backline, which of course that they needed to do, but man, Light on the Angela had some really clutch Heart Guard ultimates, which got to help out the backliners out really well. And most importantly, RSG PH, once they knew and got the good understanding of what SeeYouSoon was trying to do, which was just pretty much, let's look for the backline of RSG PH. RSG PH, you really have to go back and watch this game, how they handled that, wherein they really just watched their positioning in those team fights. They baited out abilities of SeeYouSoon. They trusted on the Heart Guard to keep them alive, to survive through surprise bursts or initiations from SeeYouSoon, and then they would counter. They would turn the fight around over and over again. And on the Beatrix again, I was able to confirm he did have back-to-back Beatrix games. Was just crucial here with his positioning, staying alive, dealing the damage. And RSG PH able to get that sweep over SeeYouSoon. And then going back to Group A, this is the other surprise of Falcon and Onic Esports. Man, silent, I just have to say. I think ever since MPLI, seeing Silent play alongside Justin, or specifically Justin rather, sorry. I want to focus on Justin here. Justin, ever since MPLI, has impressed me. And this is the first MPL Invitational I'm talking about, when I think he was still with Ronin Esports, I believe his team was. Justin here, how he played this Kagura was one of the biggest reasons why Falcon was able to win that game 1 versus Onic. This was a close game. This wasn't a stomp by Falcon by any means. It was like a 12-11 skill score by the time the last fight started. Onic was leading in turtles, but they only got to break 3 towers. And it was the positioning and timing of Justin on the Kagura when he threw out his abilities, where he was positioning. It's what surprised Onic Esports multiple times, and why either Falcon would be able to get like an early advantage in a team fight over Onic, or the reverse of that, just turn a team fight around in favor of Falcon Esports, even though Onic Esports were the one leading it. And I think it was Midnight and Wolf who was analyzing this game. They made a really good point, wherein at that point Falcon already understood that Onic, what they'd want to do is Onic had the Akai in that game number 2. Onic would just use the Akai ult, the backline will follow, and what would happen was Justin will fall back or is already in position to catch the advancing Onic Esports backline off guard, because they knew Onic would be playing around that Akai. Akai, ult, try to displace, Onic, follow, deal damage, so on. And so Justin was like, all right, I'm going to go around, I'm going to reposition, I'm really going to be holding onto my umbrella, really holding onto my ultimate. Boom. That's how game 1 was won. Game number 2, it was just, what else can I say other than pure Falcon domination. It looked like they were in the zone, they were motivated, while it sort of like Onic Esports were just absolutely read by Falcon at that point, and they were somewhat demoralized maybe, but it really did look like it that way in terms of how they played. Now, going back to Group B, RSG SG versus SeeYouSoon. This ended up a tie actually, so which meant that good news for SYS. At least they were able to get a game. So in the end, they'd just be waiting for the result of RSG PH, but it was because they couldn't get a favorable result, because we didn't have tiebreakers in the group stages. It was just all like, okay, let's just compare the outcome of the games and their performances. So SYS at least were able to get a win over RCSG in game number 2. However, because of the results and all that, it was just RSG advancing. So the RSG fam advances into the playoffs. But good for SeeYouSoon that they were at least able to get a point over RSG SG. I'll talk more about game number 2, because after game number 1, it looked like SeeYouSoon might be heading into another 2-0 loss, because even though it was a pretty close game for like 9 to 10 minutes in game number 1 of RSG and SeeYouSoon. It was just one sequence in the mid lane, which led to like a 3-0 teamfight win for RSG SG along the mid lane tower. And after this, SeeYouSoon was just playing defensive. They really couldn't find an opening, and so RSG SG would take that. In game number 2, however, SeeYouSoon really played the map well. And if I'm not mistaken, this was an Angeling combo played by SeeYouSoon. And Their jungler really controlled the map well with how they rotated the Angela and Link together. They also had a Yu Zhong. RSG SG played Natalia, but because of the presence of the Angela, there were times where I think it was JPL on the Natalia. It looked like he was gonna get a kill, but then Hard Guard comes in, so they had to back. It was a tough game for JPL, although he was impactful. He was one of the reasons why RSG SG kept game too close, but which is pretty much RSG SG waiting for the Lord fight, playing around the Lord fight, because in terms of map control, trying to push, they couldn't do that. That was already SeeYouSoon's game to win. They had map control, and SeeYouSoon were just, okay, we have no problem controlling the map. We're sticking together really well. We have an Angela. So if ever we get caught by the Natalia, we might have room to respond and save that member. And funnily enough, RSG did get the last Lord of the game, but what happened was it became a 3-1 trade. In the end, they're favoring SeeYouSoon, rather. So then RSG, even though they got the Lord, they were lacking on members. SeeYouSoon were able to get that win. So congrats to them for at least ending their run with a win. And the same can be said to Onic Esports, who also ended their run with a victory in Game 2 versus Todak. And yes, I'm going to be talking about Game 2 first, because this is where we saw more Jungle Julian. No problem with that. We saw Chico Gold Lane Leslie, CW Gold Lane Cho, Kiboy Rome Selena. Sans got to play YSS again. It wasn't the cleanest game, but still watching it, it was like, this is fun, man. Because of the picks that we're playing. It was seeing Onic get some comfort picks in there, seeing Sans get to play YSS again, and that the YSS and Sans play was one of the reasons, one of the biggest reasons why Onic Esports Indonesia won MPLI 2021. I'm mixing up 2021, yeah, MPLI 2021. So it was a fun game to watch. I'll just leave it at that. It was fun. Game number 1 though was the biggest surprise of it all. I'm gonna put the moment I'm talking about now. 2050. Onic had a 23-8 kill lead, an 8-3 tower lead, 6k gold lead. All Onic had to do was keep playing how they were playing. Be patient, play around the Lord, end the game with a win. And Onic were so careful because they were up against an Atlas, and even though Chico wasn't having the best game, they knew one team fight going wrong where Chico could just get one great crossbow of Tang in is gonna be bad news for them. So at around 20 minutes and 50, suddenly this is what I call the Bole bomb, man. If you don't know what Bole means, I think it was just like it was Lafell who taught us this word. Lafell and Mirko, they were like, oh, Bole just means like, oh, go, or like, we can do this, just go for it, something like that. And I called it the Bole bomb because no one expected Yums to suddenly just go flicker in, get that fatal links out, and he was able to catch 3, Drian, Sans, and Kiboy. CW and Drian were there. They were able to avoid it, but because of the crowd control stun, the damage coming in from Todak, yeah, it's just out of nowhere. Todak advanced to the playoffs. Onic Esports gets eliminated, and that was one of the craziest moments for the group stage. And man, it's a hell of a highlight. If Todak don't make it far into the playoffs, but I think they will. Hopefully they can look back at that moment against Onic Esports and, hey man, that was really good. That was one for the history books, as I would say. Now, RSG SG versus RSG PH, on the other hand, it was just RSG PH domination. I thought this game would be the series would be closer. This one of the series I was looking forward to because I always saw RSG SG as playing very similarly to RSG PH and vice versa. However, I think what we just saw here is, at the end of the day, RSG PH were in the groove, or maybe they are just a more refined version of RSG SG, or maybe RSG SG is a less refined version of RSG PH, but RSG SG, man, I'm really impressed with how they played in MPL Singapore. I thought this game would be much closer, but it really looked like RSG PH just had the number of their Singaporean counterparts able to take that win, absolutely dominating. Beatrix again in game 1 for Eman. I think game 1 it was just like all comfort picks. It ended 26-3 in the kill score. Eman ended it with a triple kill. RSG SG just had no answer. Game number 2, it was Claude for Eman. He got the MVP. And yeah, they just, again, textbook RSG PH. Play around your timers. Really know when to fight, when you're going to entry, when you're going to back off, catch your opponents off guard, great rotations. Very textbook RSG PH, and RSG SG were caught off guard. But again, after that, at least RSG SG already knew that they were going to the playoffs, so they were safe. Now, let's go on over to day number 2. Day number 2 was like a way faster day. I think they were able to fix a lot of the tech issues that happened as well. And this is Group C and Group D, where we'd see the likes of RRQ Hoshi, Omega, IDNS, EVOS SG, Impunity, and Orange Esports. Now, the day was started off by Omega and IDNS, and Omega just completely dominated IDNS in game number 1 with how they played it. I think by the closing points of the game, it was already like 14-1 in terms of the kill score. Omega got all 3 turtles of the game. They got the 2 lords. IDNS weren't able to break any towers. It was just completely dominating performance by Omega. Great rotations. Ryzen on the Fanny, of course. With the Fanny around, teams are much more, how do I say this, cautious with how they move around the map, where they go. Renja got his signature matchup. We're seeing Etomax play a support Julian as well. Chaknu on a setup type Grok. Keller had a great game with a carry, 5-0 and 3 by the time the game was about to close out. But I think he got more kills before the game ended after that. So yeah, Omega just dominating IDNS. Game number 2, on the other hand, IDNS said no. Okay, wake up call. Let's turn the performance around. Let's get some wins. Let's get a win in here. And they played a really, really great game number 2. Even though it hurt to see Omega lost, I'm not gonna lie, I was very impressed with how IDNS played game number 2. Specifically, Sun Saumpak. Hopefully I'm not saying his name right. Sun Saumpak. We can just call him Pak in the Tagalog broadcast, or at least Chantel and Butters call him Pak. But Angelina got the signature saver in there. Lois also was playing on the Fanny, and even though this was a close game, multiple points in the game, you could make a case for saying, oh, Mega's gonna win this, IDNS is gonna win this. Eventually, at like around 23 minutes in, there was like, or 22:30, 22:40 around that time, there was like a big fight around the Lord, which ended with Sun Saumpak getting the triple kill on with a Deeroth. Lois was still alive there on the Fanny to help secure that Lord, which just spawned. So then IDNS would just take that win. It was the performance of the Deeroth, the XP laner of IDNS, Sun Saumpak. I really hope I'm pronouncing the name right. That helped IDNS get that victory in game number 2, and maybe give a bit of a warning for RRQ Hoshi that, hey, we can play like this. You have to watch out for us. And we're gonna talk more about IDNS versus RRQ Hoshi later, because now we're gonna be going on over to the next game, which was Orange Esports. Not Orange Esports versus EVOS SG. It was Impunity versus Orange, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So Impunity versus Orange. This was the comeback game. Yeah, Impunity were in the lead here, if I remember correctly. And then this was a messy game. It was like 59 kills, so there was a lot of things going on. Probably because it was a game that had Natalia around, so you can get a lot of pick-off kills there. But the two teams were just answering each other really well at one point, where Impunity had a big lead, but then suddenly Orange got to climb back little by little, being able to counter, win team fights. So it was like, oh dang, okay, we've got ourselves a game here. So then eventually it boiled down to like one team fight where Orange was able to win it. They were able to sweep, they were able to take out all the members of Impunity KH, but in the end there was just already in defense. And Orange, because of them having the 1-1, they really just trusted on Valens to make that comeback, really get some good results and get some good items in, win some crucial team fights, get some crucial pickoffs, and they did. They trusted the process, they trusted on the comeback, and they got it. Game number 2 was, of course, very interesting, and if you were watching from the point of view of the Tagalog broadcast, it was very funny because they were kept pointing out about how poor Valens just always seems to be the guy that Impunity KH, who was rocking a Johnson and Kadita combo for TY and Senpai, if I'm not mistaken. They were just like, okay, let's look for Valens. And it was funny because Valens, who was playing the Cho, every time he would be caught in a duel, it's like the cameraman knew, it was like, oh man, this guy's about to get run over by that Johnson again. Because of course, when you're caught in the open dueling, just always so happens to be the duel went on long enough, or at that point TY and Senpai were so close that they could just already bump Valens and like blow him up. Then boom, pun intended, there's a member of Impunity KH and boom, Impunity were able to take control of the map and the game with their Johnson and Kadita. RSG Esports were caught off guard, and Impunity takes the game. At least they were also able to end with a point, because later on they would get swept by EVOS SG. Now RRQ Hoshi versus IDNS. Not a lot to say in this game, really. It was just textbook RRQ Hoshi, man. Under how we know RRQ Hoshi to be like, very dominant, great control, Albert being Albert, everyone in RRQ Hoshi just knowing their role, playing out of their mind. That's what happened in this game. And another thing I want to point out is that in game number 1, IDNS played an Irithel, didn't go well. Game number 2, RRQ Hoshi took the Irithel in the first phase, and if I'm not mistaken, they picked a third, and then Lemon just went absolutely insane. He ended the game with a triple kill. I can't recall if he was the MVP, but yeah, this was just RRQ Hoshi being RRQ Hoshi and IDNS getting caught off guard by that fact. Orange Esports versus EVOS SG. This was, well, what I want to say about Orange is that, of course, having an Atlas, having a Lilia, and having a 1-1, they played around that fact. EVOS SG played around their Natalia, their Savior, and Orange Esports just going back into this. They just played this really well. They were counter punishing, they really watched their positioning, they played around their ultimates, they made sure that during team fights, we always have each other covered, but because of course if you get caught too off guard, got caught alone, the backliners, the key damage dealers of Orange might get picked off by the Natalia. And Orange Esports playing around that, playing around each other really well, defending their mid lane. They didn't lose any of their mid lane towers, which makes it hard for any team to move around the map, get control. EVOS SG at that point already lost a lot of towers, so it was hard for them to move around as well, but they were still keeping it close enough that maybe EVOS could have turned the game around. Orange Esports respected that, and they were able to take the game 1 win. In game number 2, it was another big Atlas play, this time from Orange Esports. However, at that point, by the time they pulled off the Atlas play, they already had a big lead. Again, they took care of their mid lane towers really well. They didn't lose any of their mid lane towers. And around 12 minutes into the game, Min from out of nowhere gets 3-man Fatal Links, and EVOS SG were just caught out of position. They were trying to find a play around their jungle, around the mid lane, so that they have some more room to push out, maybe get some footing around the jungle so that they can be a bit closer to the Lord. At that point, it was like a minute plus before it was gonna spawn, but of course they didn't want to be too far into their base, because by the time it spawns, maybe they won't be able to reach it. But they were just caught off guard by Orange Esports and Min on the Atlas. Now the next one was RRQ Hoshi versus Smart Omega, and as a Filipino man, that first game that hurt because Chapter were just completely shut down, not through his fault. I think this was one of the games where my MVP here, and I can't remember if he was the MVP of the game, but Vin and Clay, but more focus onto Vin, just really understood like the mindset of Chaknu, where he would want to position into the map. It always seemed like Vin was a step ahead of Chaknu. So for any team, if you make it hard for a team's roamer to position, get info, put himself in a spot where he can get a surprise play in, get a surprise ultimate in, that's going to be really difficult for them to play around. And that's exactly what happened because of Vin and Clay and the rest of RRQ Hoshi playing really well to shut down Chaknu. Omega just couldn't find any movement around the map. Although in the end there, it looked like Omega might have just been able to turn it around, but there were way too many minions. RRQ Hoshi dragged the last team fight out in base long enough that even though at that point I think there were only 2 members of RRQ Hoshi left, not enough resources for Omega to clear out the minion waves, get the kills, and get the win. Game 2, on the other hand, though, it was the other way around. It was not the exact same story, but flipped. But this time it was just, even though RRQ Hoshi and Albert had the Ling, they had great picks. Omega on the Chaknu Kufra allowed Omega to pull a lot more surprise plays. Itomax, great positioning as always on the Eve. Renjo as well on the Paquito made it difficult for RRQ Hoshi backline to really move around. So even though this was a low kill score game, it was just Omega at the top of their game. The improved, cleaner Omega that we saw in the MPL Philippines Season 9 playoffs. The Omega that when you see them, you look, oh, those are the defending MSC, the MSC champs, the defending MSC champs. And they played like the defending champions in this game. It was great to watch, as a Filipino, as a Filipino team supporter for MSC 2022. It wasn't a bad game, I would say, for RRQ Hoshi. Although they weren't able to get any towers, or I think maybe Albert was able to get 1 tower there in the end. I don't think so, though. It was just Omega playing incredibly well. It wasn't that RRQ Hoshi played bad. It was Omega just played better than RRQ Hoshi in that game. And that's why Omega was able to get that double. And then, I believe we are at the last game, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, EVOS SG versus Impunity KH. This would be if I'm not mistaken, a 2-0 win for EVOS SG. And yeah, game number 1, EVOS SG was just in control in the zone. Not much really that Impunity KH could do. And say the same for game number 2. I wouldn't call it a squash though, because at least like in game 1, it looked like Impunity might have been able to turn around because they were defending really well. The first big Lord fight of the game, Adamir got a triple kill to seal it. EVOS SG got the Lord, but EVOS SG weren't able to end the game until like 2 more Lords after that. So Impunity KH, kudos to them for defending really, really well. They could have turned it around, but EVOS SG weren't giving them any opportunities to do that. And then in game number 2, it was a very, very close game. By the time the last team fight rolled out, it was EVOS SG having 1 tower in their base, Impunity KH still having 3 towers, 2 in the top lane, 1 in the middle lane. So it was one of those games where one mistake, one misstep can completely turn the game around in favor of your team, or if you're the one who committed the mistake or the misstep, then it's not gonna go well for you. Impunity KH, this was the last team fight that they took or they attempted to go for. I'm gonna put up the video or the picture of it there on the screen right now. If you look at it, it was a good positioning. It really looked like a good fight to take at this point. But if you look closely, Gear would be able to get away. TY looked like he had the entry in, but the heavy spin pushed him back into the wall. So Adamir got to pick him off. JPL was positioned really well, came from the back, got the flicker suppress in. So then he was able to get the kill, and at that point, EVOS SG, this was their game to win already. They had members coming in to sandwich Impunity KH, the roaming Deeroth there. You see Nick playing on the Deeroth, able to get that kill. And after that, EVOS SG would just go to the mid lane and then get that win. And that is it for MSC 2022 day 1 and 2. This recap went longer than I thought it would be, but it's okay. It was a long 2 days. So now we have our playoffs picture set. The upper bracket quarterfinals. Everyone's gonna be starting out the upper bracket. If you lose, you go down to the lower bracket. We're gonna see RSG versus Falcon, RSG Philippines versus Falcon, RSG Singapore versus Orange, Todak versus Omega, and EVOS SG versus RRQ Hoshi. I'm gonna flash the schedule as well in the screen for you so you know when to watch, when to catch the games. The upper bracket quarterfinals are gonna be played best of 3. After that, all the matches will be best of 5. But the grand finals, of course, will be best of 7. And that is it for our recap of day 1 and 2 of MSC 2022. My name is Renmar Santa Cruz. Catch you in the next one. Make sure you watch the rest of MSC.